Welcome back to Epic Horror Earth. Tonight's tale takes us deep into the shadows of a southern plantation. Secrets, betrayal, and forbidden desires lurk in every corner. Before we continue, comment below where you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss our next story. Now, let's step into the shadows. No one dared to speak her name aloud. She was young, strikingly beautiful, and different. This truth drew both fascination and contempt. She loves women. They whispered behind closed doors, their voices full of judgment and fear. Some feared her, some envied her, and one man, her own father, despised her. In a fit of shame and fury, he decided she must pay for being who she was. One evening, as the golden sun sank behind the endless fields, shadows stretched long across the polished floors of the grand house. He summoned the overseers and declared his decree. She will live with the male slaves until she learns her place. Her heart pounded in her chest, not with fear, but with a defiance that burned brighter than the sun. She had been condemned in the eyes of the household. Yet, she carried a secret, a spark of cunning and resilience that no punishment could extinguish. As she was escorted through the hallways, the other slaves paused. Their eyes followed her. Whispers passed between them, a mixture of curiosity and caution. They had heard the rumors. The girl who was different, who had been marked by the household. Yet, they sensed something unusual in her presence, something dangerous. That night, under the dim glow of lanterns, the quarters were heavy with expectant silence. She surveyed her new surroundings. The men, the male slaves she was now placed among, studied her carefully. Curiosity and skepticism were etched into their faces. Each glance, each movement, each whisper carried meaning, and she observed it all. Alone, she whispered to herself, "They think they control me. They have no idea what's coming." And so, the first thread of rebellion began to weave itself into the fabric of the plantation. A story of power, secrets, and tension that would challenge every rule. The lanterns flickered across the worn wooden walls. The air was thick with sweat, smoke, and the earthy scent of labor. This was a world she had never fully known, yet one she now inhabited by her father's cruel decree. Every sound echoed differently here. A cough, a creak of the floorboards, the faint shuffle of a foot. She noted them all. Her presence was met with cautious glances. The men whispered among themselves. Some were curious, some were wary. They had heard the rumors. The master's daughter, deemed different, forced into their quarters as punishment. The whispers carried speculation and judgment. But she noticed something else, a subtle recognition. They saw she was intelligent, aware, and not afraid. That alone set her apart. Her father's intent had been clear. By placing her among the men, he sought to bend her, to break her. He wanted to teach her obedience and force her into a world she had always resisted. Yet, she refused to see herself as a victim. Fear would not bind her. She would endure, yes, but on her terms. The eldest among them, a man named Silas, stepped forward. His back was straight despite years of toil. His gaze was sharp. "So the master's girl comes to us," he said, his voice low but commanding. "Do you know why you're here?" "I do," she replied, steady and unwavering. "But I intend to survive. Perhaps learn something along the way." Her words were carefully chosen. Not defiant, yet not submissive. They carried a subtle strength. Silas studied her. His eyes narrowed slightly, then relaxed. "Most of the ones sent here, they break. But I can see you won't. Watch carefully. Learn the rules. And you might last longer than they expect." From that moment, she understood the first rule. Control was not enforced through chains alone. It was woven through fear, respect, and observation. To survive here, she would need all three. The following days were a careful dance. She learned the routines. She saw the way they divided chores. She understood the subtle hierarchies that determined who spoke, who listened, and who acted. Each day she observed, cataloged, and memorized. Every glance, every gesture, every whispered conversation was a lesson. Her father believed he had condemned her, but she was quietly gaining power in a place meant to subdue her. It was during one evening, as the sun dipped behind the distant fields, that she noticed the first crack in the system. A young man, Samuel, lingered near her quietly. His eyes were wary, yet there was something else. Intrigue, a spark of curiosity. "You're not like the others," he said softly, careful that no one else overheard. "You move differently. You don't act scared." Fear, she realized, was a tool. So was silence. "I'm learning," she whispered back, her tone measured. "There's more to this world than most see." He studied her, clearly impressed. "Then perhaps you might survive longer than anyone expects." Her lips curved in a faint smile. She had already begun to see the thread she could pull. Alliances could be formed. Loyalty could be gained. Influence could be quietly exerted. Her father thought he had delivered punishment, but she had discovered the first truth of her new world. Power could be claimed with cunning and patience, not just physical strength. By the end of the first week, whispers of her presence circulated quietly. They watched how she carried herself. They saw how she spoke with measured precision. They noticed how she remained calm under scrutiny. A few of the younger men began offering small gestures, carrying water, fetching tools, providing subtle information. Each act was a sign of respect, earned through her calm, unwavering composure. But danger was never far. Overseers patrolled with hawk-like eyes. The slightest misstep could ruin everything. A careless word, a look held too long, a gesture interpreted as disrespect. Any of these could bring punishment swiftly, and her father's shadow loomed over all of it. It reminded her that failure carried not just immediate consequences, but a lifetime of shame. Still, as she lay on the rough straw mattress that night, her mind was alive. She thought of every glance exchanged, every whisper, every tiny act of observation. She considered the men around her, their desires, their fears, their ambitions. She thought of the way power moved quietly through human relationships, unnoticed until it struck, and she began to plot. Subtle, careful, almost invisible maneuvers that could shift the balance in her favor, without ever attracting direct attention. The sun had barely risen when she was already awake. She crouched by the small window, watching the fields glow gold. The air was crisp, but her mind was sharper, alive with possibilities. She had spent a week among the male slaves. She learned the rhythms. She understood their fears, their loyalties, their ambitions. Each glance, each word, each gesture had been cataloged. She now knew that survival here required more than endurance. It required strategy. The men were beginning to respond to her. She noticed Samuel lingering near her again during morning chores. He watched her with curiosity and caution. His presence was deliberate, yet respectful. "You move differently," Samuel said quietly as he passed her a bucket of water. "You don't flinch. Don't shy away." Most girls would have been broken by now. Her lips curved slightly. "I observe," she whispered, placing the bucket down. "And I remember. That is how one survives here. And perhaps thrives." His eyes widened slightly at the word thrive. It was as if the idea was forbidden in this place. She caught the flicker in his gaze. Admiration, curiosity, and maybe even fear. That was exactly the reaction she wanted. As the day wore on, she moved among them with calm precision. She learned which men held influence and which merely followed orders. She observed Silas as he distributed tasks. She saw how a slight gesture of his hand could cause obedience without a word. She watched Samuel and the younger men. She noted where loyalties lay and how quickly tension could flare. That evening, when the overseers had left, she tested the first subtle boundaries. She approached Samuel quietly. "You've seen me move carefully," she murmured. "Tell me, what do you think I could do here if I wanted to?" He looked at her cautiously. A flicker of excitement was in his eyes. I don't know, but you'd be dangerous if you wanted to. You'd be unstoppable." Her smile was soft, almost imperceptible. It carried promise and threat at the same time. Dangerous, perhaps, but only to those who underestimate me. That night, she lay on the straw mattress. She replayed every glance, every word, every small interaction. She realized something crucial. Power here was subtle, invisible, and psychological. If she played her part correctly, she could bend the men to her will, without breaking a single rule openly. Over the next few days, she began quietly influencing the group. She offered small guidance during chores. She shared strategic insights that seemed helpful, but they also subtly altered the balance of attention and respect. Samuel and a few others began to look to her for advice, not out of command, but out of fascination. They recognized her sharp mind. Yet, danger was never far. The overseer's patrols were unpredictable. The slightest misstep could bring punishment swiftly. Even a careless word, a look held too long, or a subtle defiance could be punished severely. She knew every action had to be precise, calculated, and invisible. One night, as a storm brewed in the distance, she took a quiet walk through the yard. The wind howled through the trees. It rattled the quarter walls. But she welcomed the storm. It mirrored her mind, restless, powerful, and full of energy waiting to be unleashed. She spoke softly to herself. They think they control me. They are wrong. Every chain they place is just an opportunity, if I choose to use it. By the end of the chapter, the men had begun to recognize her as someone different, a force not to be underestimated. Yet, no one could foresee the quiet storm gathering beneath her calm exterior. She had survived the first week. She learned the patterns. She began laying the foundations for influence and subtle rebellion. The morning air was thick with the scent of damp earth and distant smoke. She had grown accustomed to the routines, the predictable rhythm of labor, the hierarchy among the men, the subtle signals that carried authority. Yet, today felt different. There was an edge in the air, a tension that mirrored her own impatience. Over the past 2 weeks, she had quietly observed, learned, and influenced. Samuel and a few of the younger men began to seek her guidance in small ways. Which tools to use, how to organize their work, which tasks could be done efficiently without attracting attention. All of it seemed harmless. Yet, each act quietly shifted the balance of control in her favor. She began to realize the full scope of her power. Perception was everything. The slaves saw her as clever and composed. Yet, no one suspected the depth of her cunning. Her father's punishment had been meant to humiliate and subdue her, but she had turned it into an opportunity. And now, she was ready to test the limits of that opportunity. That evening, as shadows grew long, she gathered a small group. Samuel, Elias, and 2 others who had shown her respect. They huddled together quietly. "I know why you watch me," she began, her voice low and steady. "And I know what your fears are. But you must understand this. I am not here to punish you. I am not here to obey anyone blindly. I can make life easier for you. Yes, if you follow my guidance. But you must trust me. Trust that I see what others do not." The men exchanged glances. They were hesitant, yet intrigued. Elias spoke first, his tone cautious. "And if we trust you, what then?" She smiled faintly. It was a quiet, knowing smile that carried promise and danger. "Then we become stronger, not by breaking rules openly, but by bending the rules in ways they will never see coming. One careful move at a time." They nodded slowly. The seed of influence was taking root. They could feel the weight of her intelligence. They saw the precision of her observation. They sensed the quiet authority she carried. It was intoxicating and yet dangerous. As days passed, she began planting subtle strategies. A tool left conveniently for an overseer to find. A suggestion whispered to Samuel about organizing the fields. A distraction created to allow a fellow slave a moment of relief. Each action was minor alone, but together, they began to shape the environment in her favor. The other men noticed her influence, but they could not pinpoint how she had acquired it. The overseers grew uneasy. Something in the quarters had shifted. The men were quieter, more deliberate, more careful with their words. A few subtle acts of defiance went unnoticed. A misaligned tool, a whispered plan, a glance that held meaning. Each was a ripple she had set into motion. One night, as the wind howled and rain battered the roof, she spoke with Samuel alone. "They believe they command everything here," she said softly. "But the truth is, no one truly controls this place. Not the master, not the overseers. Power flows where the clever choose to place it." Samuel's eyes widened with realization. "Then, you could change everything." Her lips curved in a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Not just me," she said. "All of us. But we must be careful. One wrong move, one careless glance, and it all ends." The quarters were unusually quiet that evening. The overseers had retreated to the main house. But beneath the stillness, tension thrived like a live wire. Every eye watched every movement. Every footstep echoed a little too loudly. She sat on the edge of her mattress, observing her circle of allies. Samuel, Elias, and 2 others. Each man had grown accustomed to her presence. They waited for guidance. "Listen carefully," she whispered, leaning in close. "Tomorrow, the overseers will inspect the tools and fields. They will check for mistakes. We must make it appear perfect while creating openings for ourselves." The men nodded, their eyes wide but trusting. They understood she was not merely clever. She could see things others missed. She could predict outcomes. She could quietly bend circumstances. Her plan was daring. She had noticed the overseers relied heavily on Samuel. Over the next few days, the small shifts began to ripple outward. Tools appeared more organized. Work flowed smoother. Even the overseers began to notice, though they could not pinpoint the cause. The male slaves began to move with confidence. They were emboldened by her quiet guidance. What had begun as whispers of curiosity had grown into a silent recognition. She was a force to be reckoned with. But power always invites danger. That evening, a new overseer arrived. He was from another plantation, unfamiliar with the subtleties here. His eyes were sharp. His demeanor was harsher. His presence alone unsettled the quarters. He questioned the arrangement of tools. He inspected the work with intensity. He seemed to sense that something had shifted. She observed him carefully, calculating her next moves. The storm outside raged harder. Wind and rain lashed against the walls. It mirrored the brewing tension within. She knew maintaining control now required more than strategy. It required boldness, courage, and impeccable timing. One wrong move could expose everything. As she lay on her mattress that night, listening to the storm, she whispered to herself, "They think they own this place. But power is not given. It is taken, and I will take it, one invisible step at a time." The quarters were unusually tense that morning. The wind from the storm had left the earth soft. The air was heavy. The sky was overcast. Even the seasoned slaves seemed uneasy. They were aware of the new overseer's eyes. They felt the subtle disturbances in the rhythm. She had spent days planning this moment, the first overt test of her influence. All her observations, all her alliances, were about to be put to the ultimate test. Her goal was simple, yet dangerous: to show her leadership could orchestrate an outcome no overseer could predict, without overtly breaking the rules. Samuel and Elias waited near the tool shed. Tension was written in every line of their bodies. She approached them calmly. "Today," she said quietly, "we will see how far we can bend the rules without being caught. Stay alert. Watch the overseers. Follow my lead. Trust me." The men nodded. There was no hesitation now, only shared understanding. Over the past weeks, she had earned their trust. They saw her not as the master's daughter, but as a force in her own right. The overseers arrived sooner than expected. They scrutinized every detail. Their gaze fell heavily on Samuel and Elias. Yet, what they did not see was the subtle choreography she had orchestrated. Every movement, every word, every adjustment had been calculated. When they inspected the alignment, they found everything perfect. When they questioned the men, Samuel and Elias responded with confidence. They deflected attention from her manipulations. It was a delicate balance. One wrong gesture, and the plan could collapse. but she had anticipated every contingency. Her mind moved faster than anyone around her. As the inspection ended, a thrill of victory passed quietly through the quarters. The men exchanged glances. They silently acknowledged her brilliance. She had proven, subtly yet unmistakably, that she could orchestrate outcomes in a world designed to control her. Yet, the danger was far from over. Her father's punishment had been designed to break her. Though the overseers were momentarily satisfied, there were still those who watched for cracks. One careless glance could undo everything. That evening, as shadows deepened, she whispered to Samuel and Elias. Her tone was low and serious. What we did today was only the beginning. Influence is not about obedience. It is about perception. They must see what they expect to see, while we quietly control what they cannot perceive. Do you understand? Samuel nodded, his eyes wide with awe and a touch of fear. Yes, but how far can this go? Her gaze was steady, unflinching. As far as we are clever, as far as we are patient. One misstep, and all is lost. But if we are careful, we can change everything. Right here under their eyes. The night grew darker. The plantation fell silent. Yet, inside the quarters, a quiet storm of strategy and ambition simmered. She lay awake, listening to the soft sounds of the men breathing. Her mind worked tirelessly, anticipating challenges, observing weaknesses, planning her next move. The plantation was unusually silent that morning. Even the birds seemed to hesitate. Inside the male quarters, an uneasy energy buzzed. Her influence had grown too noticeable to ignore. Samuel, Elias, and the others moved with confidence. But that confidence had begun to attract attention. Her father had been informed of irregularities, subtle efficiencies in the work, men acting with unexpected boldness, whispers that carried hints of defiance. The overseers were uneasy and frustrated. They warned the men to be more vigilant, but their eyes were no match for her planning. Over the next few days, the small shifts began to ripple outward. Tools appeared more organized. Work flowed smoother. Even the overseers began to notice, though they could not pinpoint the cause. The male slaves began to move with confidence. They were emboldened by her quiet guidance. What had begun as whispers of curiosity had grown into a silent recognition. She was a force to be reckoned with. But power always invites danger. That evening, a new overseer arrived. He was from another plantation, unfamiliar with the subtleties here. His eyes were sharp. His demeanor was harsher. His presence alone unsettled the quarters. He questioned the arrangement of tools. He inspected the work with intensity. He seemed to sense that something had shifted. She observed him carefully, calculating her next moves. The storm outside raged harder. Wind and rain lashed against the walls. It mirrored the brewing tension within. She knew maintaining control now required more than strategy. It required boldness, courage, and impeccable timing. One wrong move could expose everything. As she lay on her mattress that night, listening to the storm, she whispered to herself, "They think they own this place. But power is not given. It is taken, and I will take it, one invisible step at a time." The quarters were unusually tense that morning. The wind from the storm had left the earth soft. The air was heavy. The sky was overcast. Even the seasoned slaves seemed uneasy. They were aware of the new overseer's eyes. They felt the subtle disturbances in the rhythm. She had spent days planning this moment, the first overt test of her influence. All her observations, all her alliances, were about to be put to the ultimate test. Her goal was simple, yet dangerous: to show her leadership could orchestrate an outcome no overseer could predict, without overtly breaking the rules. Samuel and Elias waited near the tool shed. Tension was written in every line of their bodies. She approached them calmly. "Today," she said quietly, "we will see how far we can bend the rules without being caught. Stay alert. Watch the overseers. Follow my lead. Trust me." The men nodded. There was no hesitation now, only shared understanding. Over the past weeks, she had earned their trust. They saw her not as the master's daughter, but as a force in her own right. The overseers arrived sooner than expected. They scrutinized every detail. Their gaze fell heavily on Samuel and Elias. Yet, what they did not see was the subtle choreography she had orchestrated. Every movement, every word, every adjustment had been calculated. When they inspected the alignment, they found everything perfect. When they questioned the men, Samuel and Elias responded with confidence. They deflected attention from her manipulations. It was a delicate balance. One wrong gesture, and the plan could collapse. But she had anticipated every contingency. Her mind moved faster than anyone around her. As the inspection ended, a thrill of victory passed quietly through the quarters. The men exchanged glances. They silently acknowledged her brilliance. She had proven, subtly yet unmistakably, that she could orchestrate outcomes in a world designed to control her. Yet, the danger was far from over. Her father's punishment had been designed to break her. Though the overseers were momentarily satisfied, there were still those who watched for cracks. One careless glance could undo everything. That evening, as shadows deepened, she whispered to Samuel and Elias. Her tone was low and serious. What we did today was only the beginning. Influence is not about obedience. It is about perception. They must see what they expect to see, while we quietly control what they cannot perceive. Do you understand? Samuel nodded, his eyes wide with awe and a touch of fear. Yes, but how far can this go? Her gaze was steady, unflinching. As far as we are clever, as far as we are patient. One misstep, and all is lost. But if we are careful, we can change everything. Right here under their eyes. The night grew darker. The plantation fell silent. Yet, inside the quarters, a quiet storm of strategy and ambition simmered. She lay awake, listening to the soft sounds of the men breathing. Her mind worked tirelessly, anticipating challenges, observing weaknesses, planning her next move. The plantation was unusually silent that morning. Even the birds seemed to hesitate. Inside the male quarters, an uneasy energy buzzed. Her influence had grown too noticeable to ignore. Samuel, Elias, and the others moved with confidence. But that confidence had begun to attract attention. Her father had been informed of irregularities, subtle efficiencies in the work, men acting with unexpected boldness, whispers that carried hints of defiance. The overseers were uneasy and frustrated. They warned the men to be more vigilant, but their eyes were no match for her planning. She walked among the men in the early morning shadows. Her composure was calm, a contrast to the tension. Today, she said softly, we test them again. But this time, they will notice. They will feel the shift, and they will not know where it comes from. Samuel exchanged a glance with her. Worry flickered in his eyes. Father will be here, he said cautiously. He won't like this. She met his gaze evenly. He doesn't need to like it. He only needs to see it happen, without understanding how. Power is silent. Influence is invisible. And today, we reveal the first sign of both. By midday, the master of the plantation had arrived. Her father walked with the slow, deliberate air of a man used to commanding obedience. His eyes were sharp and cold. They swept across the quarters. I hear strange things about my daughter's new living arrangements, he said, his voice low and menacing. Tell me, what is happening here? Her pulse remained steady. She had anticipated this moment. She approached him calmly, every step measured. Father, she said, I am simply helping the men organize their work more efficiently. They respect you, and I only wish to assist them in performing their duties better. Her father's eyes narrowed. He sensed more than she revealed. And you believe this is appropriate? I believe, she said, her voice unwavering, that they work harder. They follow orders more precisely. They respect your authority more fully, all while learning to rely on themselves. As you wish. Her words were carefully chosen, truthful in part, yet hiding the deeper truth. Her father studied her. Suspicion flickered, but he found no overt fault. The seed she had planted had shielded her. For now, that evening, after her father departed, she gathered her allies. Today, she said, her voice low and intense, was the first time we faced true scrutiny. And yet, we succeeded. Do you see what I have done? Do you understand how influence works? Samuel nodded. Awe and a hint of fear were in his eyes. Yes, but father will notice sooner or later. How long can we keep this up? As long as we are clever, she replied. And careful. One mistake, one slip, and everything ends. But if we act with precision, patience, and strategy, nothing can stop us. The men looked at her with respect, loyalty, and silent admiration. She was no longer just the master's daughter. She was no longer a punished girl. She had become a quiet force within the quarters, a leader they trusted implicitly. Yet, the risk was growing. Her father's suspicion had been aroused. The overseers were watchful. The storm of tension was palpable. Every decision, every word, every glance carried weight. The next move could either cement her influence or expose her to ruin. As night fell, the wind howled. Lightning split the sky. She stood by the small window, looking out across the fields. They think they control me, she whispered. But control is an illusion. Power lies in perception, in influence, and I hold both now. The morning sun rose weakly. It cast long, uncertain shadows across the fields. The air was tense and heavy, not just in the quarters, but in the grand house itself. Her father had returned. He was sharper, angrier, and more suspicious than ever. He had noticed the subtle changes, the efficiency, the quiet confidence. Today, he intended to confront her, to finally impose his will and break her spirit. She had anticipated this moment for weeks. Every interaction had been building toward this confrontation. She moved through the quarters with calm precision. Remember, she whispered, today is about perception. We act as if we obey, but we guide everything. One wrong move, and it ends. But if we are clever, we win. Her father arrived at the quarters. His presence was commanding and severe. His eyes were sharp and unrelenting. They swept across the men. I hear whispers, he said, his voice full of menace. Whispers of disobedience, of my daughter influencing my men. Tell me, is this true? She stepped forward, calm and composed. Unafraid. Father, she said, her voice steady. I am only helping the men perform better. They respect your authority. They follow your commands. I merely assist them to fulfill your wishes more efficiently. Her father's gaze narrowed. Suspicion flashed. And you believe this is true? That they obey you? Yes, she said, locking eyes with him. They obey because they respect your authority, and because they have learned that I guide them carefully. Nothing more, nothing less. He studied her. He was torn between disbelief, anger, and a faint acknowledgement of her intelligence. He could sense the subtle power she held. Yet, he could not openly confront it without exposing his own authority. That night, after her father had returned to the main house, she gathered the male slaves. They met in the shadows. Today, she whispered, we faced the greatest test yet. They watched. They probed. They threatened. And yet, we succeeded. Not by rebellion, not by force, but by subtlety, by influence, by patience. Do you see now what we can do? Samuel and Elias nodded. Awe and respect were in their eyes. Yes, Samuel said. We follow you because you see what we cannot, because you guide us without being seen. She smiled faintly. It was a quiet, victorious smile. This is only the beginning. The master believes he holds power. The overseers believe they watch all. But influence is invisible. Perception is everything. And now, we are unbound. In the following days, subtle but irreversible changes began to take hold. The male slaves worked efficiently, confidently, and with an almost imperceptible boldness. Her father remained unaware of the quiet rebellion. He did not see the invisible thread she had woven through the quarters. And in the center of it all stood she, calm, cunning, and in control. The shadows of the plantation stretched long into the night. They were silent witnesses to the quiet power she had claimed. In a world built on oppression, she had found freedom, not by defiance alone, but by mastering the art of influence, perception, and patience. Please subscribe to the Epic Horror Earth channel.